Welcome, everyone, to the L7C podcast, Women's Gymnastics Edition. Today, we are going to be talking about women's gymnastics, and we have a little special for you guys today. This is going to be the first of a two-parter. This will be part one of what we're going to be talking about, and then part two will be coming out later on. So we have the women's gymnastics expert, Miss Sarah Bogan. How are you doing today?
I'm doing so well. Thank you for asking. It's a little rainy, a little stormy here in South Florida, but I'm doing well, settling in. I think I finally recovered from the absolutely insane Olympic Games for gymnastics that we will talk about much more in depth. We have so much to talk about in part two, but here in part one, I wanted to give a little bit of a palate cleanser and a little bit of a celebration of some of our college gymnastics icons that we love, who may have fallen through the cracks for some of us because they weren't on the US team. So I thought we'd spend some time celebrating all of the NCAA gymnasts who we saw in the women's competition in the Olympics, and talk a little bit about what they accomplished while we were there. So to kick things off, I have one statistic I want to give. By my count, there were 12 current, committed, or former NCAA gymnasts representing various countries at the Olympic Games. And that's total. So that's including the US and several other countries. So my first question, here's a little trivia question for you, Martin.
No, didn't know I was having trivia today. Okay.
Which country at the Olympics do you think had the most of those 12 total gymnasts?
That's not the United States,
Well, including the United States.
including the United States.
Yes.
I'm trying to think where people are from. I think if this country was even in the women's, it's not Brazil.
No, not
It's
Brazil. That's correct.
Russia's gone. It wasn't China. I am going to. It wasn't France. I'm going to go on a crazy limb. I have two. No, I
Okay,
have
go
three.
ahead.
Three. I have three.
Three. All right then.
Three potentials. My crazy limbs.
Okay,
Australia, Canada, Philippines.
Philippines. Okay. So Australia actually didn't have a team competing.
Tragic.
Um, but there is some history of New Zealand and Australian athletes
Mhm.
competing for NCAA. Um,
Mhm.
you're actually pretty darn close with Philippines. So the Philippines had three, and they are actually tied with the United States of America, with who also had three.
Mhm.
But first place for most Olympic or most NCAA gymnasts committed, current, or former on one team is Canada. So you hit that one on the nose. So Canada had 4 out of 5.
I don't know why
So
I felt like Australia. I don't know why. I just felt like Australia. They produce athletic people. So I was like, oh, but then of course they weren't even in the thing. And then Canada and Philippines. I almost said hungry.
hmm, yeah, there's actually, I think there is a Hungarian gymnast who's committed to the University of Georgia, who we'll get to watch in the coming season.
And
Um,
I don't want to butcher her name. Sanig Bakse from
yeah, I think it's
Nebraska. She's a sophomore.
yes. So I thought she transferred from Nebraska to Georgia, but maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's quite a lot of international representation in the NCAA for various reasons. But I think Canada is perhaps the most well versed. We almost forget about Canada sometimes because there are so many Canadian gymnasts. Utah State, my home team, has a few Canadians that come through. But yeah, 4 out of 5 of their gymnasts this year were um, either like alumni or current or committed. So Shalyn Olson is an Alabama alum. She is a really big name. She's done really good work at the NCAA level and then also the international elite level, especially on vault. And then they had a trio of young rising stars who we will see starting in 2025. Cassie Lee and Ariel Tron are both going to Iowa. And then Miss Ava Stewart is going to be starting at Minnesota. So I wanted to highlight these ladies I want to start by really highlighting these ladies because first of all, they were the most NCAA focused team in the competition, but they were also really successful. I think as a team, they had a really nice standout for kind of um, where they're at internationally right now, and the state of the program as well. So Canada's been going through kind of a reckoning. They've been going through kind of some cultural issues with, the health and the safety of the gymnasts. And they had a lot of injuries. And so not a lot of people were expecting a whole lot out of this team, but they really
Mhm.
overperformed, especially with those young gymnasts, Cassie and Ava, coming in doing good work. So in the team competition, they qualified for the team final in sixth, and did, I thought, one of the standout performances in the team final. They ended up finishing fifth in the world overall as a team. In addition, Shalyn Olson, that Crimson Tide alum, made it to the vault finals, and she ended up finishing seventh in the world on that event, which I think is just so cool for Canada.
I, so, you said, out of how many countries were actually represented at the Olympics for the women?
Oh boy! So I want to say that there were. I should know this. I should know this. So I believe there were 12. I believe there were 12 teams in the qualifying. So there were 12 teams that advanced as teams to the Olympics.
Mhm.
And they were all competing for 8 spots in the team final. So the top 8 in qualifications as a team advanced. So Canada slotted in at the 6th spot and was able to advance. So Canada being in the team and any team being in the team final or in the team competition, even as qualifying, is a big deal because there's a lot of work that the program and the country has to do overall to
Mhm.
get that full team qualified.
Okay. Yeah, it looks like there was a lot of countries, obviously.
Yeah.
Um,
So overall, there are lots of individual gymnasts that also competed,
mhm.
representing their countries, but there were only 12 that were able to take a full team of 6.
Okay, okay. Because just looking at all the stuff, United States got gold in the as a
Mm-hmm.
team all around. And then Italy second, Brazil third as a
Mm-hmm.
team, and then you had that legendary podium stuff with the individual all arounds with three of you can maybe some of the best ever with Simone, Rebecca, and Suni, and
Mm-hmm.
then Simone and Rebecca first and second place in the vault with Jane, and then even if you go down to the floor extra guys, Rebecca, then Simone, then Anya, and then just looking at all the different people who play Suni third. And then just seeing even the rhythmic gymnastics too, just seeing all the competitors and all of that. I think from a watching standpoint, it was very enjoyable.
Mm-hmm.
Very enjoyable to watch, as especially if someone is a casual who only turns in maybe for gymnastics at the Olympics. I think to your point of even the reason for this specific podcast, I felt like the NCAA should have been promoting more, even though I know the NCAA is in America, so you're cheering for America. But I think they should have promoted more of like, hey, these are all these other people who, after they're done with the Olympics, you could see them right back at X school or X that or X that. I feel like that would have been a nice little springboard for like the season.
Yeah, I agree. And I was really surprised as well that we didn't see more. I think other individual schools did a really good job kind of highlighting people. So like I know Alabama had two gymnasts in the competition, Shalyn Olson and Luisa Blanco, who we talked about a lot this past season for NCAA, and then we'll be talking about a little bit later in this episode. And then UCLA, of course, they have Jordan, and they've got Emma Malabuyo representing the Philippines. And so the individual schools really did a good job giving shout outs to their athletes and talking up their athletes. Um, if not the individual schools, definitely the um, schools' gymnastics pages. But the NCAA as a whole, and then a lot of kind of the larger, more general university pages really weren't promoting and getting excited about these gymnasts as much as um, maybe you would expect.
Which is funny thing too. Again, maybe because again, you don't want to hype them too much because they're going against America, yada yada, which is fine. I I saw this Discord, this little question of obviously they're coming to the States or they're from here and they have their nationalities or their parents were born, all that representing their country, which is fine. Someone asked the question during Olympic time, should these
Mm-hmm.
athletes even be allowed to train here because they're going against the United States? So should they go train in the country they're representing because they're using the United States as facilities to beat the United States?
Well, I mean, to be fair, nobody has beaten the United States. I don't think that's a concern.
Not
But I mean
yet.
the same. It's well, not yet. That's a good point. I think that's an interesting point. I'm not too concerned about it because I don't know. I think it's an issue in all sports. Like should NBA players be able
Hmm.
to benefit from all the resources that they get in the NBA and then go hang out
Hmm.
um, on another country's team? And yeah, I think the US, and we see this kind of in the Winter Olympics too, there are like necessarily hot spots of places to train, places where you have to go and train in order to do specialized Olympic sports, especially in the winter. Um, and I feel like if we have that as part of the conversation and try to kind of pick and choose who's allowed to train here, who's allowed not to, you're going to see um, pretty big decline. I think that's going to impact a lot of sports in a really negative way.
Hmm.
And there will be like kind of a decline in competition. I'm curious to know, like, is the same kind of conversation happening for the other sports?
No, it came up for more like these individual. I think it came up. I forgot. Ah, man, I wish I was prime Olympic mode. I forgot which specific sport, but there was an individual. No, now I know because it had something to do with Shakara Richardson and Olivia
Ah,
Dunn. The person who it was a male. I think he was a pole vaulter or something in track, and the United States didn't want him on the team, so he went to
hmm.
go represent whatever his parents country or whatnot. And then he smoked the USA and won the gold medal and broke a world record. It was something like that. I remember that picture because it had like all of them that they all went to LSU or something like that. So, which by the way, school producing Olympians over there. But
Yeah.
it came with that. Like, what are we like? We're letting our best people go if they're gonna train here. That's where it all stemmed from. So it started from the track
Ah,
thing, and
I
then
see.
it went to like these individual specialty type sports. But no,
Yeah,
I just think they could have promoted the other college athletes more. But I understand. I understand the name
of
of the game with the coverage. You want to follow the
course.
person who's going to generate the most clicks, and that's obviously was Simone. I
Of
think
course. And
even
I
too.
will say,
Go
oh,
ahead.
go ahead.
No, I was
So
going to
what,
say too that they could have, and she's amazing. Like I think people forgot how great um I'm blanking on her name. Rebecca is.
oh, Rebecca Andrade.
Mhm.
Oh my gosh, she's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think another thing at play here and like why we didn't see a lot of these gymnasts in the prime time is because just quite frankly, they weren't competing in the medal rounds as much. So we saw
Mhm.
Shalyn Olson in the vault final. So that was one example of kind of a medal event. But for the most part, all of these other gymnasts, and then Canada competed in the team final, so all eyes were on that.
Hmm.
Um, but these other individuals from the Philippines and Haiti and Colombia, they only competed, with the exception of Luisa Blanco from Colombia, only competed in the qualifying round, which Peacock and NBC did cover, and they did a really good job, I thought, showing off the NCAA gymnasts on the Peacock coverage, but it was not something that was shown in prime time. So it was shown in, kind of live, and if you tuned in to watch the coverage, you could see them, but they didn't have their eyes, just the general casual viewer didn't get their eyes on these gymnasts, just because they weren't in the hunt for medals, really. So that's a factor too. They're not um, bringing home the hardware, even if they are representing their countries and their schools really in an exciting way.
Yeah. And I think the USA had more juice. I had to make sure before I said I had to look up when your last episode was, and it was right after being at the trials. The USA team was set. So we didn't even have an episode talking about the drama of like the USA, like with Suni needing to get that score to be the second representative in the all
Mm-hmm.
around, because we didn't get to talk about that. Like, I think with that, I mean, that juice itself like really propelled this USA team to be like truly, truly in the
Mm-hmm.
spotlight, because you got the person, and just me, obviously, I've said it on this thing, I am like a fan of hers, but I'm also a person where if you're a defending champion, you should go be able to defend your title. And Jordan was right on. I mean, they were going back and forth like that battle. I think like really amped up people's like attentiveness, and juice to be like, oh, if this is how the USA women's team's gonna be, like I can't wait to see him in Paris, because they were going at it,
Mm-hmm.
and it came down to her, and it's just one of those things like where whoever shoots last won, and it's her, and it was Suni's best event that went last, and it's just like, what can you do? And she needed a certain score, and she got it. I was like, that makes great gymnastics television.
It does.
But then you also realize how big a fan favorite. I mean, obviously Simone, because she's the GOAT, she has like all of her fans and all that. But I can make a case like fan favorite wise. I think Jordan is the most fan favorite gymnast in the world.
Yes. And we can talk about this more, kind of down the road, because we will have a lot to say about Jordan Childs
Mm-hmm.
in part two. Um, but she definitely like knows how to work a crowd and how to be really supportive
Mm-hmm.
and how to, get all eyes on her. And I think that's why we do really see, I think one school that did a really good job promoting their gymnasts at the Olympics was UCLA,
Yes.
because they've got the star power of Jordan Childs to amp up, and to represent them and amp them up. I do want, this segues pretty nicely,
Mm-hmm.
because, speaking of, fan favorites and stardom and such, did you know that there was a reigning NCAA champion competing at the Olympics this year?
Outside of, let me look at these name
Reigning
lists.
NCAA champion. You know who it was?
What country?
The Philippines.
Philippines.
Mhm.
Didn't I said that was the second country I said in second.
Yeah, so the Philippines, like I said, the Philippines is tied with the United States, and for a number of current, committed, or former NCAA gymnasts on their team. So Philippines had three representing them, and one of them is a reigning NCAA champion, and her name is
I am blanked. Who is it?
Miss Aaliyah Finnegan from LSU.
From LSU. Ah,
Hmm.
now, yeah, okay, okay. There's always an LSU Tiger somewhere in the sport.
Yes. So I was surprised we didn't get more hype from the Olympic side. So I did see a lot of hype from the LSU side, bragging that, we've got Aaliyah Finnegan in the Olympics.
A national
Um,
champion.
reigning national
Yeah, reigning
champion.
national champ. Coming back to
I
do
don't
it
think
again.
I don't think there's ever been a reigning NCAA national champion competing at the Olympics. I think she might be the first,
Yeah.
at least on the women's side.
She needed more pub. She needed more publicity because that is kind of wild. Because if you think of like another sport, like, oh, we got a reigning, defending, like other sport, like USA sport champ coming to the Olympics who's repping their team like that. But should have been definitely I highlighted more. But I also think it's because you weren't on the USA, so it didn't get highlighted more.
Yeah, not on the USA, and then also not kind of in the finals.
Yeah.
Um, So, I mean, like one thing working against these college gymnasts is, talked about this a little bit on some other episodes about how college gymnastics and elite gymnastics uses this different scoring system. And so,
Hmm.
in order to take your NCAA routines up to a tip top level to be competitive, you have to add a massive amount of difficulty, which is just a whole different level of stress on your body
Yep.
and just ability.
Yep.
So Aaliyah Finnegan is an example of somebody. She was actually of the three Filipino gymnasts. She was the first to qualify. She was the first to start representing the Philippines internationally. Her mother is Filipino, and the Philippines actually didn't have they didn't have a very robust existing international elite gymnastics program. So to credit, like all credit to the Philippines to put in the work to recruit gymnasts to represent them.
It's a big
There has
deal.
been, yeah, there has been a lot of kind of, like you talked about kind of like generally, I think, was it a Reddit post you were talking about asking, like, is it really ethical for people to like use the
It's just
US
people
things? And
complaining.
well, the gymternet, the gymnastics fan, there's a big swatch of the gymnastics fandom for like the rest of the gymnasts we're going to be talking about today on this episode. There are a lot of people who think that like these gymnasts should not be allowed to switch countries because a lot of the narrative is like, oh, these gymnasts weren't able to make it for like the US team. And so they're like going to another country because it's easier to make the team. I
Well,
think Aaliyah Finnegan
hmm.
particularly gets, and then her teammate Emma Malabuyo from UCLA, they both get a little bit of slack and a little bit of flack because both of them used to compete for the USA. Both of them were involved in the Olympic trials process back in 2021. So Aaliyah Finnegan competed at national championships as an elite gymnast before she went on to LSU. Didn't qualify, just barely missed qualifying for Olympic trials. Emma Malabuyo also is competing for the Philippines now. But she made it all the way to the Olympics as an alternate for the USA in 2021. So there's a little bit of tension there with some gymnastics fans, especially with the US, not being quite sure what to think of that. But whenever I see people who are kind of criticizing that, I like to kind of lean back and read quotes and interviews and watch videos interviewing these gymnasts and their parents or grandparents. So Aaliyah Finnegan's mother is Filipino, and there's this amazing video of like after Aaliyah's first meet representing the Philippines, she did an amazing job. And her mom is just standing next to her, like crying because she's so proud that her daughter is representing her country. Levi Young Ruvavar is someone we haven't mentioned yet. She's committed to Stanford. We are going to see her this season. Her paternal grandfather was born in the Philippines, so she's another gymnast that the Filipino Federation targeted and recruited to compete for them. And then, of course, Emma Malabuyo from UCLA did the complete transfer from the USA to start representing the Philippines. And in the end, Levi ended up finishing 40th overall in the all around. In qualifications, Emma came in 41st, and then Aaliyah finished 47th, which, given that they had spent, a lot of time focused just on their NCAA level routines, I think that's pretty respectable.
So I have a question. Were
Go for it.
you alive in 1964.
I was not alive in 1964. Were
Okay.
you alive in 1964?
I was not alive in 1964. Uh,
That's what I thought.
our demographics would say a lot of people who listen to this podcast were not alive in 1964. There might be some of you out there who do, and we appreciate you. But again, I think, see, this is, I think, my problem with promotion. Because if you're telling me that she, alongside, I mean, Levy and Emma, and they were the first female gymnasts to compete in the Olympics for their country, for the Philippines since 1964.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I don't understand how you don't promote that. Also, the fact too that like she was the anchor of the Tigers of LSU.
Mm-hmm.
Led them
Perfect tens for days.
led them to this first national title, and then the year before that finished second in the floor. So the fact that she finished second, came back, finished first, became a champion, and then went and did this stuff for her country, for her mom's country. Like that is so it's so noteworthy that needs to be talked about more because 1964 and it's 2024 and this is the reigning defending um
Mm-hmm.
anchor, the anchor for people who don't know. If you watch track, anchor's the last person on the leg who gets it in the relays. They're your go home person, they're your home run hitter. They're usually your best player, like, hey, bring it home to us. And that's what she does and did, and got on that LSU's first title in the craziest NCAA tournament, maybe in gymnast history, because the unexpected happened. She definitely should have
Mm-hmm.
been promoted more. And I think when we start next season, the NCAA will really like highlight all of these things because it's like, oh, you really didn't get that much of a break.
Yeah,
You went from
I definitely hope
hoisting
so.
that trophy to, all right, time to go to the Philippines, go to Paris to get to work.
Hmm. I will say though, I am shocked that the U.S. media didn't hype her up and hype, all three of the Filipino ladies up.
Yeah.
But I really love what I've heard, just around the gym internet about how the Filipino fans have been reacting to these gymnasts. And it sounds like the Philippines is really, really proud of where their gymnastics program is headed, and it sounds like their fans were very, very excited to cheer for these ladies.
Oh,
Um,
I'm mad you kind of brought that up because it goes to now one of my pet peeves about the United States of America. Everyone treats their Olympians so much better than we do. It
mm,
is absolutely sickening. The man who won the 200-meter race for his home country, I mean, he came back. They named a day after him. He got everything off. Like there were some other, like you see all these different great stories about like this is the first gold medal for the Philippines or like Australia or like Nigeria and stuff like that. And they get literally what you should get as an Olympian, a hero's welcome.
mhm,
United States, you come back, it might be like your friends and family at the airport, and then we don't do anything for them. So that just literally just led to my pet peeve of how we should treat our Olympians better. And we pay them the least. The United States pays our gold medal people the least, which is annoying.
mhm.
So just saying. Because again, we're gonna have, I don't know if it'll be 2028. More than likely, stats will tell me otherwise. It will be 2028. It'll be that first Olympics in a while. There'll be no Simone Biles on that team. So
Well, we don't know that yet.
we
We'll
don't,
see.
but
We shall see.
I'm doing statistics in my head. It was like, all right, 32. We'll see where she wants to
Simone
be at in life because
Simone Biles, though.
that's true. But
You
at that
can't count
point,
her out.
she may want a family. We don't know.
You can have a family and be an Olympic gymnast.
Not if she's pregnant at the same time.
Not if she's pregnant at the same time. Well, depending on I digress. I digress.
But we
But
don't know
just
what
kind
she'll
of,
want at that point. And that I'm just being realistic. 32, and even if she does compete in LA, she's definitely not past 32. No way. There's going to be a time where she's not on there. So media, I'm looking at you guys to dig up, do your homework, look at these young ladies rising, look at the young ladies who will be there, and Because I think that is going to be a movie in 2028 with
Oh
the
my gosh,
Olympics
I'm
here.
so excited for 2028. I think, kind of this points to a little bit, thinking about like like Simone Biles, talking about Simone Biles and like the Olympic team got silver in
Mm-hmm.
2021. And it was, like people were supportive of them, but it was kind of a disappointment, in like the US news media and such. They have like the medal tables, and it's like, oh,
Yep,
look, USA has the most medals, they have the most golds. And it almost feels like it's taken for granted. Like, our Olympians are supposed to
absolutely.
go and win and win and win. And I
Absolutely.
think it relates a lot to what we're talking about here. Like, we have like a reigning NCAA champion representing her country, her mother's country, finishing 47th. We don't see her outside of the prelims, but like, how many amazing stories and like amazing wins and human interests and like just amazing sporting feats are we as US media consumers missing out on because of
Mhm.
kind of the obsession with like who's going to win the gold.
Yep. Yep. No, I agree. It's one of those
So,
things too in the America, like you literally just said. We send everyone in certain sports. We're expecting, especially when we have a legend in the sport, or we see a legend in the making becoming of the sport. We're expecting gold, and then anything less is a failure. Even when you go back to when she had to take herself out because she had the twisties and all of that, that first week and a half after she took herself out,
oh
oof,
man.
the discord. And again, I mean, I was shooting one the all around, so that was all cool for me. But like the discourse around Simone from her home country, the United States, oof, people forget it was very vile out there. She's a failure. She abandoned her country. She has no United States pride. How could you do that? It was very bad. And
Yeah.
then those same people are cheering that she got gold because she got gold. People are fickle.
People are very fickle. There are two more gymnasts I definitely want to mention.
Mm-hmm.
So, on the topic of history making, so Lindsey Brown, Miss Lindsey Brown, um, she finished 53rd in qualifying. She was there representing Haiti, and she is the first Haitian gymnast to ever compete at the Olympics. So,
We got a lot of first.
Lindsay, yes. So Lindsay is, she was a top NCAA gymnast throughout her entire career. I believe she graduated, I think she graduated in 2023.
Mm-hmm.
So she's been retired from NCAA gymnastics for about a year now. And after she graduated, she decided, I think she looked and saw like Aaliyah Finnegan and Emma Malabuyo and Shalyn Olsen and all these other gymnasts from the NCAA continuing to compete for other countries. She represented Denver. She had a coach named Jessica Lopez who represented, oh no, Colombia.
Mm-hmm.
I think she represented Colombia after time at Denver for a very long time. And so Lindsay stepped up and started competing for Haiti. Her father was born in Haiti, first Haitian gymnast ever to compete at the Olympics. And she's another one who's gotten a little bit of flack for like, training in the US, taking advantage of the US resources, and then switching countries. I say that in quotes to compete. But um, from my understanding, Lindsay has been doing just amazing work in terms of promoting the sport in the country. And down the road, she'd really like to have a direct role in growing the gymnastics community and the gymnastics program in Haiti, which, we always love to see. I mean, I always love to see a new nation being involved and being able to get involved in this sport. So
She's
Lindsey
also a
Brown,
coach at Penn State.
yes. So I believe she's being coached by the Penn State coach. I'm not exactly certain, but she spent the past year coaching for Penn State and also training at the same time, which is pretty impressive if you ask me.
Yeah. No, I love
And
it.
then,
I love first time. I love first time stuff like that. I love people breaking barriers, being the first because her and Finnegan, who we were just talking about, you're gonna have some 5, 6 year old girl in those countries watching them. Is like, if they can do it, I can do it too, and that's how it starts, man.
Hmm. And then the last gymnast I want to make sure I mention is the incredible Luisa Blanco, two-time AAI Award nominee finalist. The AAI Award for gymnastics is the equivalent of the Heisman Trophy. So Luisa Blanco, she competed for Alabama. She just finished. We believe she's retiring now. She graduated from Alabama. Has been national champion individually. She has been in the top, has been a top NCAA gymnast for years and years.
Hmm.
Um, she actually, so both of her parents immigrated to the US from Colombia. So she has that Colombian root, very strong Colombian roots. She actually competed in the qualifying round and qualified to the individual all around final, which is just so impressive. So Shallon Olsen made it to the finals in vault, but Louisa is the only one of the non US NCAA gymnasts to make it to a final. So she got another victory lap just to compete, and she ended up finishing 23rd in the world overall. Um, and I think that was really exciting. I loved seeing that for her. Um, Here's a fun fact. You'll like this. Where do you think, or what do you think, who do you think Luisa Blanco, after college, after the 2023 college season, when she decided to start competing elite again and start representing Colombia, so about a year before the Olympics, she kind of thought to herself, I want to go home. I don't really want to go home because I
Hmm.
won't be able to focus on my training. I need to find somewhere else to train. Who do you think she trained with?
I feel like I don't want to. I feel like the cop out answer would just be Simone Biles, and she went to Simone's gym. But I feel like
You're
that's
close.
way too. I feel like that's way too easy. Is
So
is
think
this
about
person active or non-active?
this person's active. Think about the
Active.
state. Think about the state, Alabama.
Oh, that threw it off because I was gonna pick an inactive, like former champions place. But who the hell is in Alabama?
What other school is in Alabama?
Oh, SUNY.
Yeah. So Louisa ended up driving up to or moving up to Minnesota. SUNY had a spare bedroom. She lived with SUNY, trained with SUNY. Um,
Wow.
so that's kind of a fun fact. And it was also during a time, I think, well, we've talked about SUNY's tough road back to the Olympics. That was at a time when SUNY was really struggling to bounce back from her health issues
Hmm.
and really needed a training mate. And Louisa really needed a place to train. So Alabama gymnast and a former Auburn gymnast
Yeah,
reached across
rivals.
the
Oof.
aisle to support
It's.
each
I'm
other.
glad you gave me that hint because I was gonna start naming like she went to like former like world champs of the past's house because of her last name. I was like, what you do? Show up to Nastia Lukin's doorstep and be like, hey, can you teach me some things or something like that? But this thing that's cool though. Like that type of stuff is cool because it helped both of them in the long run.
I did. And it's two people representing different schools and also different nations working together. Something we saw. So we don't talk about men's gymnastics on this
Oh, I was gonna
podcast
bring
very
him
much,
up,
but
Mr.
go
Clark Kent
ahead, go for it.
himself.
Oh no,
Mr.
I was going to talk about somebody else.
Well, I was gonna
But
bring up
we
little
can
Clarky boy,
Clark,
Mr. Steven.
Clark,
And but
we can
before I get to
absolutely
him
talk about
though,
Steve.
the whole team in general. I mean, getting third in the
Oh
team
my
all
gosh.
around,
Just so
and
proud of them.
it's I even forget the stat because I feel like the Olympics were so long ago, but it was like at the beginning of the month. It has been ages since that men's USA team has gotten to that podium and the way they did it, the dramatic finish. Steven now potentially going on Dancing with the Star, all that he's become a worldwide thing. I watched him on Good Morning America. He's become the meme of one of the memes of the year of him just sitting there with his glasses on, just fully just asleep. Is just now the meme is like when I'm getting ready before go time, and then he literally takes his glasses off, does his thing, and he did his thing well to get him up there. So I thought it was amazing because I don't remember a time in my life where the men and women's gymnastics teams had so much juice going into the
Yes.
Olympics and during the Olympics.
Mm-hmm. They were
You can bring up the
incredible.
other person you're going to bring up.
Oh,
Then
so
I'll
the
bring
other
up
person
Steve.
I was going to bring up on the topic of, like these gymnasts, seeing these gymnasts from different countries supporting each other. So there is a Filipino gymnast named Carlos Yulo
Oh,
who
they treated
actually,
him like a king when he
oh my
went home.
gosh.
I saw all the stuff
Yes.
he got.
So he got two gold medals. So he
Mm-hmm.
got the first gold medal for the Philippines in
Yep.
gymnastics. And then the next day got the second gold medal for the Olympics. And but something he has talked about is how much he's enjoyed having Aaliyah and Levi and Emma around, kind of as because it was basically him at the Olympics and the three of them
Mm-hmm.
representing the Philippines. So that was sweet to hear about how much he enjoyed their energy that they brought to training and representing the Philippines. And I really enjoyed watching, I think for the men's floor final or vault final or whatever the first one that Carlos won gold on was. It kind of panned to the audience where like they show people watching.
Mm-hmm.
And so Aaliyah Finnegan was sitting with Suni and with the other US gymnasts and like standing up and cheering for Carlos. So it was really fun to see kind of the US gymnast and the Filipino gymnast mingling because they had this NCAA connection that maybe they wouldn't have either or wouldn't have had otherwise. So I think that was another cool thing to see with all of this.
I was trying to find the exact list of all of the things. I had the picture too back when it like happened of what Carlos got from winning because it was a lot. Like he got a house. He like it's like how gymnasts should be treated. Let me just where is it at? Come on, don't fail me now.
I mean, Simone Biles has a really nice house, but that's because of all her sponsorships.
Yeah, it's not
She was able to like buy her own house.
yeah, it's not like the president coming to you and be like, hey, here's a house on us that these other countries freaking do. Like he got a lifetime supply of free buffets, baked mac and cheese, chicken, promised business figures, major companies, condominium, lifetime supply. Like it's just how you're treated. That's how you should be treated when you're an Olympian, man. That's awesome. No, I remember him. He was great. He was great.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to see him in the future. So Martin, we started with kind of a little quiz, little guessing game.
Mm-hmm.
This I want to end with another guessing game, which I
Okay.
think you might be more qualified to answer
I
now.
don't know about
Since
that. I got lucky on
given
the
Okay, so we're thinking again. So we started off, Canada is the team that had the most committed current or former NCAA gymnasts out of all of them. So
Yep.
by my count, there are 12.
Yep.
Okay. So Canada has the most as a team, as a country. Now let's talk about schools. So which NCAA school or schools have or has the most Olympics or have had the most of those 12 Olympians?
Feel like there can only be a finite pool of to pull from. Um, so schools I would consider UCLA. I would consider
Okay.
Florida. I would consider LSU. Um, I don't even know if I could consider Oklahoma, but they win everything. I would throw them in that pool,
Mhm.
but I don't think it's them. I think it's one of the three I've named.
Okay.
Um,
So what were they again? So it was
it was LSU, Florida, UCLA. I'm thinking if I want to try and throw Oklahoma in there or maybe Stanford. I don't think it's any Big Ten team, so I'm gonna throw them all out. I don't think it's anyone in the ACC, so I'm gonna throw them out. I'm gonna stick to those ones.
all right. So one of those is correct.
All right. Well, all right. We got the
So
pool down.
one of those
Okay.
is correct. So UCLA had two gymnasts
That's not.
there. So Jordan Childs, of course,
Yep.
and Emma Malabuyo representing the Philippines.
Yep.
So with two. So there are two other schools that also had two gymnasts. two Olympians this year.
That'd be LSU.
Nope.
Not LSU.
LSU just had one.
Just had one.
Hmm.
Florida.
No, Florida had none.
So Stanford,
No, Florida had one, or
Oklahoma.
Stanford had one. Oklahoma had none. So think about Canada. Do you remember who was on Canada's team?
Yeah, I do.
Okay.
Just why? I really.
Okay. So one of them, okay, so
I was about to say Colorado. I was like, no. I was about to say Denver. I was like, no. Still really had the one.
all right. So it is second one is Bama, actually, Alabama.
Alabama.
Yes, because Alabama had Shalyn Olson for Canada, and they also had Luisa Blanco for Colombia. And then the
Okay.
hardest one, which I wouldn't expect you to get, the other is actually Iowa. So it
Oh,
was a book, it
and
was
it
a
was a
Big Ten
Big Ten team,
team.
as I just
Yeah.
casually threw out the whole conference.
So, and actually, technically, don't forget UCLA is now in the Big
Yeah, it's a
Ten,
Big Ten.
which,
Yeah, that's true.
that's a whole other can of worms we can get to later.
That's true.
But,
There. Yep.
yeah, two of those four gymnasts for Canada are going to be starting as freshmen at Iowa this year. So it'll be very interesting to see what Iowa is able to do with their new coach and these incoming Olympians and kind of their returning talent coming back from injury. Yeah, so shout out to Canada for having the most NCAA gymnasts on their team, and shout out to Iowa, Bama, and UCLA for putting the most of their team members into the Olympics.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, even though I don't even have the answer, but little trivia thing. Don't know if you've known since it's been posted on the socials. We've passed 500 episodes on the L7C
I did see that. I
podcast
was very excited.
and just passed our 4 year anniversary this past Monday. Just a quick off the top of your head, I don't have the exact number, having part two. Out of those 500, how many episodes have you been on since
Oh my
joining?
goodness. That's a good question. 12?
Potentially, I'll have the right answer.
I don't know.
I was just like,
Well,
there was
because
just
like I
like,
figure like at least three per season. We've done 3 years, right? Three
mhm,
different NCAA seasons. So at least three per season. So that's nine. And then throw in the year-end ones and
mhm,
the NIL one.
mhm.
And then these Olympic ones. I mean, that's probably a solid dozen.
Does that feel weird being like a dozen out of the 500?
Hmm. It feels, I think, we don't have really, gymnastics doesn't have as many games and doesn't have as many
Hmm.
competition opportunities as like your basketball or your football.
Hmm.
And we've talked about this before with like season tickets don't cover as many meets because we have like the nature of gymnastics is there's this pounding on the body and they
Yep.
can't give us more than what they give. So, yeah, I mean, I would love to do more. And, like the My Hero Academia and, Dragon Ball, anytime there's an episode, there aren't as many gymnastics meets as there are Dragon Ball episodes.
Hmm.
So Oso will never be someone I catch.
But there would
But
be
I
something
am,
where you can think of a secondary thing, like when I think with the My Hero stuff with like Andrea, when their seasons are over, then she does like case study stuff. It's like, what if X, Y, and Z happen? You could do the
hmm,
same thing for gymnastics. You could do a lot of what if things. You could say, all right, if the 2012 gymnastics team, USA team, went against the 2016 USA gymnastics team, who
oh
would
boy,
win?
that would be a lot of work for
See, there
Gabby
you
Douglas and
go.
Allie Raisman. I
I know,
can
but
tell you that.
you could have the what if battles of like who out of you get 08, 12, 16 out of those three, they put them in a big meet, who wins and who wins what?
Yeah, definitely a possibility. Yeah,
And
I mean,
I'd be very interested to see who you would pick out of those three teams to win what.
I'd be interested in, yeah, maybe trying to do a little bit more of that in the off season, especially
Yeah.
now that I'm not trying to work on my stupid PhD anymore. Not that it was stupid, but
Oh,
but now I have more time on my hands. So perhaps we can think about that a little bit more.
there you go.
Yeah.
And then for people listening, because remember we said this was two-part, because I already
Yes.
know the gym internet, as you have elegantly called them, they are probably wondering what's your opinions on Ms. Jordan Childs and the whole fiasco of that. That will be all in part two. So
It
don't
will all be in
worry,
part
we,
two.
we did not skate. It's just want to highlight some other young ladies and men who are out there
Yeah, we'll
doing their
have
thing.
a little palate cleanser before we dive into the muck next time.
So that was definitely it. Sarah, anything else?
No, that's all for now. I'm very excited to talk about all of the very high highs and the very, very low lows of this year's Olympic gymnastics a little bit more next time.
Perfect. With that being said, thank you everyone for listening to the L7C podcast. Make sure you like, rate, subscribe wherever you listen to. This was part one of our overall Olympic gymnastics special. So make sure you listen to this before you click on part two. And part two will be on the way, which we will cover the Jordan Childs drama and all other things. With that being said, L7C signing out. Thank you for listening to this episode of the L7C podcast. Be sure to like, rate, review, and subscribe to the channel. Follow us on all social media platforms, and we'll be talking to you guys soon. Take care.